Hello, my name is Mike Parker. I'm the Tree Fruit Extension Specialist at North Carolina State University. Today we'd like to talk about planting pecan trees. In North Carolina, we plant grafted pecan trees to get improved varieties. The reason we don't plant seeds is because pecans are cross-pollinated, and if we just planted the seed from a pecan tree, the resulting tree would be inferior to most of our nuts. So again, when we do that, we graft trees. It's important to understand what a graft union is when planting pecan trees, because what we like to have is when the tree grows, we like to see the base flare out. However, this tree that was planted too deep goes straight into the ground. It does not have that flaring, which gives the tree all kinds of strength during heavy winds, especially when we have a leaf or fruit crop on the tree. So we would like to talk today about how do you properly plant a pecan tree to make sure it is strong and durable and lasts many years under high winds in North Carolina. In pecan orchards at maturity, there will be 7 to 8 trees per acre, usually spaced 70 by 70 or 80 by 80. However, for a grower to establish an orchard and to wait for that period of time to fill that orchard, in North Carolina, many of our growers choose to plant high-density orchards. They plant trees at 35-foot spacing between rows with 35-foot between trees, resulting in approximately 35 to 36 trees per acre. By doing this, we get nut production earlier in the life of the orchard to offset the cost of establishment. Then over time, as the trees grow, shading becomes an issue. At that point in time, trees are removed and we thin trees out until ultimately at maturity, there are 7 to 8 trees per acre. Planting high quality trees is essential for any successful pecan orchard. Here's some trees that we're looking at. These are bare rooted trees. Realizing in North Carolina, the varieties we plant are all improved. They're grafted trees. We have a rootstock in which we've grafted a scion of our desired variety on top. The reason we plant grafted trees is because we want desired varieties, and the only way that we can get that is with a grafted tree. If we planted seeds, there'd be so much variation from the nuts being cross-pollinated that the trees coming up would not be uniform. So buying a high-quality tree is going to be essential. Here we have some examples of bare root trees that have been purchased. We have our rootstock with the graft union here and then the tree growing out. However, it is essential to understand where that graft union is at. We know that if we plant pecan trees too deep with this scion variety planted below the surface, it will not root. When we plant trees, we like to have them well rooted, but we want the roots as close to the surface as possible. In North Carolina, one of our major issues with pecan trees is the trees blowing over during tropical storms or hurricanes. When the trees are planted, we want to make sure that this graft union is above the soil line, usually 3 to 4 inches above the soil line. However, identifying that graft union is going to be very difficult in some cases. Another type of tree that can be purchased would be a potted tree. The potted trees, again, that we use in North Carolina are going to be grafted. Here you can see the graft union on this pecan tree, and it grew off from here. So realizing when it's planted, this graft union will need to be 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 inches above the soil line after the tree has settled. However, when using a potted tree, you have to be very careful with the root system. You pull the tree out of the pot and you need to look for roots that may be circling. We want to remove the soil and then find the major roots. The problem is if we do not take care of the roots that are circling in these pots, they will continue to grow in a circle until those roots constrict the tree and girdle the tree and actually result in it dying. If we were to look at a tree that this was not done, this is a young potted pecan tree, but if we look at the root system, it is growing in circles. It has been in the ground for a year. However, the roots were not parsed out. If we look at it here, you can see the roots growing in a circle. Those roots will continue to grow and enlarge and continue in that circle until they constrict and girdle the tree. So it is essential when planting a potted tree that you make sure that you pull out the roots, get rid of any circling roots. Here I'll come in and pull this away because as you can see there are no roots growing outward. When you plant a tree like this, that is not going to be good unless you properly prepare the root system before planting. You can see it again continue to grow here in a circle, and it's essential that those be parsed out. Sometimes it's difficult to pull those out. If you cannot pull them out, probably the best option would be to come in and cut those roots. Knowing that every place we make that cut there, this root system will send out new roots that will be able to explore the soil around the newly planted tree. When the pecan trees are grafted, they're usually grafting onto a 2 or 3 year old root system, they will come in and place a pin, if you will, a short section of the desired scion variety. So we look at the graft union is going to be here. You can see it's more of a Z-shaped graft union. And then when the tree grew out, this bud at the top is the bud that grew out to grow the scion variety. So again, this is not the graft union here. The graft union is going to be down here. So the soil needs to be 3 to 4 inches below that graft union when the tree has settled after planting. When that happens, we know that the root system will send out roots near the surface, and then it will form that buttressing. Usually a good rule, if you follow, is plant the trees at the depth that they came out of the nursery. Many times you can see where that soil line, so that is many times is a good indicator. However, make sure that that graft union is above that point. Another type of graft that is used to propagate pecan trees, probably not used as much now as it was historically, is called a 4-flap graft, or maybe sometimes referred to it as a banana graft. The rootstock 4 flaps of bark are cut down. The scion pin here would have 4 shaved sides. It would be placed in to the middle of these 4 flaps. Those 4 flaps would be brought up, making contact with the cambial tissue, and then it would be secured. So if we would look at a tree here, this is where the tree grew out. The bottom of the graft union would be here. So the planting depth would need to be 3 to 4 inches beneath that. Once we've augured our holes, prepping that hole for planting is going to be crucial as well. We've used an 18-inch auger to auger our holes, but if we'd go in and look at the sides of the holes, it's sort of glazed. The fine particles in the soil have been compacted, if you will, with the auger going round and round. And if we were planting a tree into a hole like that, the roots have a hard time penetrating through that layer of glazed soil. If we look at the sides of the holes, they are glazed. Looking up close like that, you can see where even in this lighter, sandier soils, there is still a glazed layer that needs to be broken up. So one of the easiest ways to do that is come in and use a shovel, hit the side of the wall, and twist. This is essential before planting the trees. Another way that can be accomplished is on the auger. You can come in and weld a piece of large steel, such as a railroad spike, that sticks out approximately 1 to 2 inches beyond the edge of the auger wall, and as it goes around, it will scar up the wall. However, this is one of the easiest ways once our holes have already been dug. Now that we have our hole dug, we have our hole prepped, we also have to make sure that our tree is going to fit within the hole. If you look at the trees, we have a very good root system on this tree, very vigorous. If we would look at the hole here and plunge it in like that, we would see these roots coming up. That is not acceptable. It's also not acceptable to take and come in and put them in a circle around, as they will continue to go around. So several options here. One is you can come in and dig the hole a little larger, or you could come in and remove these roots at the edge of the hole. So we'd come in and cut the roots so that when it goes into the hole, that those roots fit within the hole. In some cases, when large, vigorous trees are purchased, the taproot is so long that it's very difficult to dig a hole. In that case, some light, judicious pruning on the taproot can take place. We do that because we will try to reestablish the taproot. And in North Carolina, we get very little taproot growth because it's so deep in the soil. Most of our rooting is going to be in the top 18 inches of the soil. When we make this cut like this, notice it is a light, judicious pruning. At that point in time, we can put the tree back in the hole. We've cut the roots so that they fit. Once we have our tree placed in the hole, realizing that the graft union here, we bring approximately 3 to 4 inches. At that point in time, we will start to fill in the hole. Once we have filled the hole in with soil, realizing it's loosely packed, we would come in and hold the tree in the upright position. Then we come in and pack the soil around the root system. That is our planted tree. If we were to come in and look at our graft union here, bottom of the graft union is here. We have 4 to 5 inches above the soil line. Realizing this tree will probably continue to sink a little, maybe up to an inch. Once the trees have been planted, it is going to be essential that you water the tree in or water the root zone and saturate the hole. One of the ways to do that is come in with the remaining soil and make a soil dam, if you will. Then we can put the moisture within that dam. However, do not leave the augered hole partially filled, leaving a 2 to 3 inch lip or hole there in which to put moisture. The problem with that is if we get heavy rains, that will result in the moisture collecting within that and not running off, and it could drown the tree. With a dam like this, if we have issues with heavy rain, we can come in easily and pull back the water dam, allowing the moisture to escape. After planting our pecan tree, there's a couple things that we want to take notice of. With this tree, you can see the remnant of the water ring that was around the tree. Notice it is elevated, it is not sunken below ground, so that water can run off. Another practice that our growers use is to paint the bottom 18 to 24 inches of the tree white. They use a white latex paint. Do not use an oil base, it has to be a latex paint. This helps to prevent temperature fluctuations within the tree. It also prevents any herbicide drift that may hit the trunk. To paint these, we get a gallon of latex paint, put on a rubber glove, put a car wash mitt in, stick it within the paint, and come in and just paint the bottom of the tree. For more information, please look at the North Carolina Pecan Growers website, or look at North Carolina State University's Cooperative Extension Service website as well. Thank you and good luck with your endeavor.